Welcome to podcast 43. Yes, 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 maybe, but yes.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Podcast 43. I'm your host, Chris Borg, and I'm joined with.
Hey, Fulton, glad to be back again. Sorry.
Well, Eyes sure am glad to be back too.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're talking hard eyes. If that poorly thought of pun didn't give it away.
We got to keep the people on their toes,
Yeah,
So that's what it's all about. So it also took me a moment to really click. So I'm sorry. Yeah.
no, it's okay. It's all right. It's that the true hallmark of a well-constructed joke is you have to think about it for a while.
Yeah. So we have eyes, and then I'll throw mine in. Did you get a Reuben sandwich when you saw Hard Eyes? Because it's directed by Josh Rubin. That's about as far as my thought train went to. So I'm glad that
Did you drink
one
a
of the
bottle of
things.
Josh? Because it was
Very
directed by
true,
Josh
very true.
Rubin.
You get a bottle of Josh and you get a Reuben sandwich, and then you can
Mhm.
really have the full experience.
Uh, so so yeah, we're talking about Hard Eyes, which was this week's new release from a, a lot of people are saying this is a real light in the darkness of early year releases. I don't know if I really co-sign that, but I definitely feel like I'm in the minority. But a lot of people
Mhm.
have really taken a liking to this one and kind of how it plays with genre conventions in two genres. It's People seem to enjoy that.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess my so I think I was more favorable on the film than you were. But my short pitch would be like this is a romantic comedy that just happens to be a horror film. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, it does do a really good job of balancing both. It really does feel like it has both feet in both the genres. It's
Hmm.
in the romantic comedy genre while also being in the slasher genre really
Hmm.
at the same time, 50-50.
Yeah.
So I have to commend it for that. And also, Josh Rubin does have a background in comedy uh,
Hmm.
as someone who directed episodes of Adam Ruins Everything and other college humor related things. And then I don't.
Damn.
So if you love Adam Ruins Everything as much as me and Fulton do,
Mm.
then you're sure to love the comedic stylings of one Josh Rubin. He also directed that movie Werewolves Within from 2021, which had Sam Richardson, who was had a lot of big roles on. Um, oh my God, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank about. He was in.
Oh, the Detroiters.
Oh yeah, he's in Detroiters because
Hmm.
he does a lot of stuff with why am I can't believe I'm not remembering his name. Tim Robinson. He
Tim
does a lot of
Robinson. Yeah.
yeah, because he also has a pretty big role on I Think You Should Leave in a lot of the sketches and stuff. But anyways, this is I haven't seen Werewolves Within, but I just
Mhm.
I remember when people were watching that was definitely a COVID movie. Uh,
I actually wasn't conscious of that one um, until I looked into his filmography, but it was in my watch list. But if you follow me on Letterboxd, my watch list is a little crazy, so I
yeah,
have a
well,
lot of stuff I have no idea.
I'm looking at movies and I'm like, I thought I'm the first person. I'm like, I was like, oh wow, I'm doing a deep dive into like Kurt Russell's filmography, and I'm like all the way at the bottom of his like least popular movie, and like Fulton's already added it to his watch list.
Yeah. If I really like an actor or director or whoever a part of the crew, I'll just go through the list. I'll look at every movie. I'll say, yep, 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 yep. Now, because my watch list is so big, I'm a bit more, I try to be a bit more conscious of really what I'm putting in there. But yeah, without further ado, another way I would describe this film, and I feel like I might be getting the phrasing wrong, but I've heard this type of description for a film before, but I feel like it's kind of a house of cards where, and by that I mean like it kind of has, I don't want to say like a weak structure, but I mean that really like the chemistry between our two leads, which are played by Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding. If these two characters don't have interest, then the whole film really kind of fails. So I actually thought that they had a lot of very well, to me, very well developed and very funny like interactions. I thought their chemistry was very good. So for that reason, I think the romantic comedy aspects kind of worked better for me. And I'll kind of get into why I think there's one kind of thing about the horror aspect that doesn't exactly work for me. But I thought I did like all the horror elements, but there's like this one little tiny piece of the puzzle that doesn't work.
I see.
But I'm interested to see what you think about that. But we can get to that. But I was curious just because the
Well,
film is kind of like a big blend. How did the romantic comedy aspects of the film work for you?
so I would say that I probably liked that aspect the most too. I did feel like my biggest gripe with the film was that it felt very, very postmodern in kind of an annoying way where nothing was very
Mm,
earnest. It feels
mm,
like a little bit of like scream exploitation. Like it's
mm,
definitely playing with that mold in a lot of ways of like doing kind of we know we're in a slasher.
mm,
We're kind of playing with romantic comedy genre conventions in a very wink and a nod type way. So that was my biggest problem with the film, and it really was the thing that prevented me from enjoying it overall. But I did enjoy both the leads.
mm.
I don't know if you were a Disney XD watcher back in the day,
Oh,
Fulton.
dude, I religiously watched Kicking It. When it went
Yeah,
on to Netflix, I would fall asleep to it. I can't tell you really a single thing about much of Kicking It now, but at the time, I've probably seen that show way too much. Like every episode, probably like 3 or 4 times.
yeah, me as well when I was like in
Yeah.
middle school. So yeah, to see Olivia Holt from Kicking It
Yeah.
in a horror movie now was pretty novel. I'll say
Hmm.
because like I really completely forgot about her as an actress. Like
Hmm.
I had no idea what she was doing. But just for her to pivot from like being in like a Disney children's sitcom to like a pretty gory movie, like one of the
Yeah.
more gory films that I've seen in a while. Like I was pretty amazed at
Yeah.
how violent this movie is.
It's kind of crazy, but it's all very. I liked the gore elements too. I was pretty satisfied with the film as a horror film, except this one thing that I want to talk to you about. But we'll get to that. Um, yeah, I know, and because it's funny that you say scream exploitation because I really do think you kind of hit it on the nail, especially like with some of the twists and turns that the narrative takes. At the end of the film is feels very scream. The whole film basically is like the HEK Heart Eyes Killer is out and about, and then kind of becomes like a I'm sorry, and the HEK killer will target couples, and then you kind of have a whole will they won't they thing, but the killer believes that they are a couple, which is also playing on those kind of conventions that you were talking about with the romantic comedies, and then it turns into a kind of a who done it, which I kind of really enjoyed near the end, but um, Mason Gooding is also in the more recent Scream films, or Scream 5 or 5, I
He was
think,
in
or 6.
he was in 5.
5, yeah. So that's also kind of fun because I that's where I first got introduced to him.
Oh,
And
he was in six too. Yeah,
oh,
sorry, those
six.
movies
Okay.
all fade together. Yeah, but
Yeah. So to speak on like the postmodern aspects of it, those are actually I really enjoyed kind of the tongue-in-cheek aspects of the film, but I only really because they they derived like very good humor out of those conventions. Like I really like that there's a scene early on where she takes him back to her apartment, and it's kind of a comedy of errors that lead them into this apartment. And so she's like cleaning it up, which is a cliche. But then they move to the bedroom, and then she like looks at her bedside table and sees a vibrator, and so she's like trying not to get him to look at it. But I just thought it was very funny because when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, that'd be a really funny bit," and then they did it, so I was very satisfied with that little moment. I just thought it'd be very funny if there was just like a dildo out, and then she's like,
yeah,
"Oh no, I gotta move," So, and then they of course do their own thing. And there's another little moment where they're having this very heartfelt conversation in a car, and not to spoil too much, but there's a couple in the back seat, and so they're having this lovey-dovey oozy talk, and then you just hear like two people having sex in the background. And so like a lot of those little like bits where they're playing with that ooziness I really enjoyed.
well, yeah, I think it really does show Ruben knows how comedic timing works and how to
Mhm.
like even there was an underrated part for me that made me laugh was how one of the one of the like cornerstones of her character when she's introduced, when Olivia Holt's character is introduced at the beginning, is that she
Mhm.
never uses paper straws and she always carries around a metal straw because she's
Mhm.
environmentally conscious and she also doesn't like how bad paper straws are. And so if you watch a movie most of the time and they make a big deal about something, a MacGuffin, then
Especially
you're
horror.
then you're like, oh, so she's gonna use this metal straw to kill the Hard Eyes killer at the end, or it's gonna play an important role in saving her life or something. And then at the end when they have to fight him, they're like, we need a weapon, and she's like, well, I have this, and she pulls out the metal straw, and Mason
Mhm.
Gooding's like, that's not gonna do anything, and they just like toss it aside and just never mention it again. And I was pretty happy with being subverted in that moment because I was really expecting just a metal straw related finale. So
But it does, well, I don't want to spoil anything. We can come back to that
yeah.
because I thought I could have misremembered something, but we'll come back to it for sure. Um, oh damn, I forgot my sound effect. Okay,
That's
well,
okay.
I'll just use it right now. That's fine. So pretend for audience, pretend this. I just said this at the beginning of the episode, but Chris, are you ready to look into these crazy mysteries this week?
Yes, Fulton.
That's all I had. I just had a Scooby Doo
Okay.
laugh. So
Okay.
yeah, that was all.
No,
I
it's
really like the
okay.
Scooby Doo laugh. So
It's a good
um
laugh. Yeah.
yeah. So I guess the other thing I wanted to kind of talk about, um because it's a slasher, I think it's kind of fair to kind of compare it to other big slashers. And I think something that's interesting to look at with slashers is like um how do certain slasher films become like a franchise? And so this is a conversation that we can really have just mainly with Hard Eyes. I don't really think it's very applicable to Bay of Blood, but it's applicable
Yeah.
to what it influenced. But I think a part of it is like how iconic is like the killer
Yeah.
and how easy is it for people to grasp onto that. So my question is, do you think the Hard Eyes Killer in his design and aesthetic, does he have that, iconic nature that like Michael Myers and Jason and Freddy have? Like, and I mean, that might not even be what the film is really going after too. but I
So
was just curious how you felt about his design.
So I enjoyed the design. I like the Hard Eyes Killer's main weapon is a crossbow, which is pretty cool because
Yeah.
it's I don't think I can't really think of another villain that uses a crossbow in a slasher movie. I guess like at that point is it a slasher movie if they're using
Yeah,
a firearm
that's
or
true. Yeah.
but nonetheless, I think the way that the Hard Eyes Killer moves is more akin to the Ghost Face and Scream because it's a very like mobile, like fast
Mm,
killer, and I think that like to me that makes me less inclined to say yes because
mm,
I feel like something about like a Michael Myers or a Jason or even the what's the guy from My Bloody Valentine that has the pickaxe the miner
oh
guy?
yeah, the miner.
Is it just
I well, I know who he is in the story, but I don't think he's oh wait, don't you know he has a name. It's not like an iconic name. I think it's just like
just
this
like some
crazy
guy
guy. Yeah.
or even Freddy Krueger?
Hmm.
It is just the miner. It
Oh,
is, yeah.
okay. My
But
bad.
Freddy, so even like Freddy Krueger or something, like, he's got kind of like a big personality, and
Uh-huh.
that's why he's always been my favorite for sure.
Yeah, he's awesome.
But like to me, like something that's great about a slasher villain is this feeling that you can't escape from them, even if they're
Hmm.
going at a snail's pace, even if they're just slowly lunging towards you.
Hmm.
And so for me, the Hard Eyes Killer, he was a little too fast for me, even if I did enjoy the mask quite a bit. And I also feel like this film doesn't really leave much of an opening for sequels, but it could be also going in the Scream direction, which is what
Yeah.
I feel like it's really trying to do. As I said, like it feels very much indebted to Scream, and
Hmm.
I just think Scream is kind of it's good. I like Scream, but it's definitely not what I like seek out. Like that's definitely not like the type of slasher movie that I like have the most affinity to for, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, no, I completely agree. Like conceptually I like that he has these like red heart eyes, and I find it funny that like his throwing knives like they have the heart cut out of them, and then like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think all that stuff's kind of funny. Um, I just wasn't crazy about the mask design,
Well, it looks
and
like
that
that
kind of
movie,
what kept it.
The
Mm.
Collector. Remember that movie
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
from who directed that? It was like James Wan, I think.
Oh
No, he just
yeah.
produced it. But it if you see the poster, you'll like no, it's like a horror, one of those like 2009 horror movies where like somebody's like lacing up this like burlap sack mask. Uh
Mm.
yeah, so
Was the collector the one where he like ran a nightclub and he like killed everyone inside of it?
um no, I want to say that it's like a home invasion movie that's kind of like
Okay.
a Saw-esque like type of horror movie.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember there was a trailer around that time. I thought it was the collector, but I would see it on DVDs that like my family bought, and it would scare the shit out of me. I was like, that is so scary. But so I'll have to confront that movie one day. But yeah, for me, like the only horror aspect of the film that just didn't really work was the character design of Hard Eyes. But it didn't really hold me back from really liking it, because I very much did. I thought it was a good bit of fun. But
I
that
was
was
qu-
the my only hiccup with it. That's
I
just
was
personal.
quite I was quite surprised when you said that it was filmed in New Zealand or when we found that out and then, we watched the movie and it's just all about Seattle because that's where the film is set and they do such a good
Mm,
job, I feel like, of making it seem like Seattle or making I've never been to Seattle, so I can't entirely say that, but
Yeah.
they they make it seem like what I would imagine Seattle to be.
Yeah. They
Um,
had homies walking out of the theater being like, damn, New Zealand's the new Seattle,
yeah.
you know? So, yeah, no, I honestly, I kind of forgot. And I didn't even, there were no like, for someone that has not visited Seattle nor New Zealand, there were no traces that really popped out to me that I'm like, oh, that's Seattle, or oh, that's New Zealand, you know? So I agree.
Yeah. And also just like if there was something that I really liked in the beginning was how comedic it was and how like they set up Olivia Holt's character and Mason Gooding's character meeting and they're like waiting for coffee and then they like both ordered the same coffee and
Mm.
then like they like she like drops something and then like he's like I'll go get it and they like bump heads and stuff and I really did enjoy how it was playing with those like genre conventions pretty extremely with like kind of the whole like meet cute like oh
Hmm.
like the dreamy guy that has the same coffee as me and
Hmm.
um so like yeah there's a lot to like and I do think that like there's a lot of people I think are going to get more mileage out of this movie and I think I just wasn't really the right person for it. And I think it really is also dependent on how much you like Scream. Like, I think that
Hmm.
that's a really important component of if you're gonna like Hard Eyes.
Yeah, for
And
sure. Because
and
like,
you would say you like Scream probably more than me, right?
yeah, I have seen every Scream film. I like marathoned them in prep for Scream 5, I think. Or Scream 4. No, yeah, Scream 5.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas I thought Scream 5 pushed it a little too hard with the postmodern stuff.
Oh God, yeah, I really
Um,
hated that movie. Yeah.
but Scream 6 now went all the way over the top, and I really had a lot of fun with Scream 6.
And hopefully
Yeah,
in
but
Scream 7, Jay and Silent Bob are gonna come back. Yeah.
that was a real big shining grin on my face when they showed up in 3, I think Scream 3, I
Yeah, they're in
think.
three. They're in three.
Yeah. And yeah, I can definitely understand getting kind of tired of the Scream formula.
Well, it's to me, my biggest issue is that I think it's also like it's a lot of people think it's filmmakers think it's like a free pass to like not make something unique or I think
mhm.
it's also like by not being earnest, you get a little you could say some people assume that you get a free pass
Yeah.
and I just prefer like my like earnest horror movies where it's just kind of like if it is if it is silly it's more like camp factor as opposed to like fourth wall
Ironic.
breaking ironic
Yeah.
so
I
yeah
have just had this thought, but is Scream 5 like The Force Awakens for Scream? I mean, it's because it's really like playing on a
yeah
lot of this, like the reboot kind of trope, but essentially the same exact structure as Scream, I want to say. Um, but sorry, that's not a, it's a little off topic, but
no
yeah,
I would say well
I guess I'd have to rewatch it. It's just a,
well you can do that Fulton but I
yeah.
I think I well that was it's surprising that like that was where Mikey Madison really got her start or like where I knew where who she was from Scream
Yeah.
5 and similar I guess well Jenna Ortega was in a few things prior to that but Jenna Ortega too was in those movies which and she was going to be in the rest of them too so
Yeah. Which is a real big bummer because I really liked what they were doing with this new trilogy, which has completely gone it's from the casting. Seems like it's gone completely out the window, but
yeah
we'll
now they're
see.
just now they're really doing the true well, no, they I mean, but yeah, you are right though. It is just the Force Awakens. It's like we're gonna bring a few people back from the old movies and then, you know, we're gonna kill one of them off because that would be pretty dramatic, but we have a new generation and they're taking the
Mm.
helm of the Scream movies. I don't
Chris,
know.
we may have stumbled onto something really interesting here
Yeah.
because this trilogy kind of does me, not to harp on it too much, but I mean, you have the whole creative team gets completely exchanged between the second and third film of the trilogy.
Yeah.
We'll wait. I'll write an essay.
Okay, you'll write an essay. Yeah, sounds good.
I'm not spending that much time thinking about the Scream films, but there could be an interesting case there,
I,
But we'll see.
oh, also, what I loved about this movie was the scene where they're at the drive-in and they're playing His Girl
Mm,
Friday on the projector at the drive-in. I
hmm
was like, well, that earned them some bonus points for me. That
Yeah.
they could have included any film from the Sony Pictures library probably, but they decided to pick a Howard Hawks movie and one of my favorite romantic comedies. So
hmm
that was pretty nice. I'm assuming you got a pretty big kick out of that too.
I did. I very much appreciated that. Although I'm a bigger fan of His Girl Saturday than I am Friday, but like that's, splitting
Well,
hairs.
if we're really splitting hairs, I'm more of a fan of Friday and Friday After Next
Yeah, than His Girl
than
Friday.
His Girl Friday.
Um, do we want to talk about spoilers with this one? I mean, I feel like we kind of laid out a good bit without really having to, but I don't know. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say. I mean, we did kind of omit like one of the big characters that is the biggest spoiler that was like that's like kind of like the spoiler magnet, but which was
Well,
surprising. But
yeah.
I wouldn't say that like it's entirely compulsory to discuss spoilers. I think we don't need to.
Yeah, I feel like we've this is quite rare. I feel like we normally do have to kind of get into spoilers to really talk about it, but I feel like the film does kind of lend itself to you can kind of, we can talk about it without really spoiling for people. So they won't
Yeah,
hear the horn this week, it sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah. Well, did you think that like the Hard Eyes Killer was a little too fast? Did you feel like they didn't really play with suspense as much as you would have liked?
Hmm. Yeah, I can agree because like definitely well I thought there's a sequence in a police station. I thought that was pretty good, but a lot of it happens very like rapidly. Like there's
Yeah,
really that only one scene with the closet that they really kind of
and it's
play
not
with
even
suspense there.
well, and that's more of a jump scare too.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, because like she goes to hide her vibrator in that comedic scene when he's over at her apartment after he hurts his hand and she's going to
Hmm
patch him up with a first aid kit and then she is opening her closet to put it away covertly and then he's the hard eyes killer is hiding in the closet and then he starts
Yeah.
chasing them.
I do think that her gut react I won't spoil it, but the gut reaction to do what she did was very funny. I thought that was a good bit.
Jump
Um,
around. Yeah.
I was talking about the utility closet when she's like at the police station and she's like, I think someone's in there. Like, I know he's in there and everyone, and it's a trope for everyone to be like, oh no, you're just like crazy, you're just hyper right now. And then,
Yeah.
but yeah, I will agree. They don't play too much with it. And for a film that I really did enjoy, I did enjoy. It is very predictable. Like there's like a little bit of a fake out, and I was like, "Ah, okay, I called that. Like I really did figure like there was more to the plot than what just happened there. Um,
Yeah.
so
It's I mean like it is a very like I said, it's a very gory movie, but
yeah,
I
for
also
sure.
just don't feel like it has that and this is like really not fair, but it doesn't have that same texture that I get from like watching something like Mario Bava's Blood and Black Lace where
hmm
it's like the blood is like this crimson color and it like it doesn't it doesn't have like this like incredibly like rapid pace that's like just a flashing image of like just something really gross and
Mhm.
horrible, and then like it just kind of cuts away. It's like always a little bit slower but also like more colorful and
Mhm.
playing with your playing with your senses a little bit more. So,
Mhm.
but what can you do?
Yeah, I agree. I think in for the lack of suspense in some moments or really building that tension, the gore was good enough for me, weirdly enough. Like I'm not even like a gory guy. Like I'm
I'm
not
a
like
gory
I
guy.
gotta see the gore.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it in this film. I thought a lot of the deaths were like I was like, oh, I haven't seen that before. And they were kind
Yeah.
of playful, you know? Like
It was
so
playful.
like the opening bit I really loved and I was really worried because I was like, oh man, this green screen is really rough. Um and so
So they do this cold open at the beginning of the film, which also feels very much like Scream, where
mm,
you have characters that are unrelated to the main characters and they get brutally murdered, and it sets the scene for the rest of the film.
mm,
And so in this case, it's a proposal. This guy's proposing to his girlfriend, and of course, the Hard Eyes Killer is drawn to them for that reason. And there's some pretty inventive suspense that's used, and then it also introduces these detectives, which
mm,
I really didn't like the detectives. I thought their dialogue was really annoying. It was that's another thing that I need to talk about, but I feel like the dialogue in this film is very like Sorkin-esque, and that's like
mm.
not a compliment. Like I feel like they speak very fast. Like there's the scene where Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding go to that really fancy place for dinner
Mm,
because he's trying to get with her, but they work at an advertising agency and she's stressed out about her job, and she also like is over is trying to get over a breakup that she had, and like she's just not into it. And so like
mm,
she's speaking incredibly fast at breakneck pace, like criticizing all these things about her life. And she's like, you know, it's marrying or dating somebody's dumb because everything's going to be bad. You're going to die one day, and like there's no
mm,
point. And it's just like I was just rolling my eyes. It just felt like I was watching The West Wing.
mm.
But
See, I agree with you, but for me it was very like character based. So like the detectives and the boss, I was like, this is not working. Like it's too much.
yeah,
With them, I was like, it's too much. But for their main relationship, I thought the two actors were able to handle it really well, or they were directed really well, and they were able to make that work for me personally. But the boss was like really, the boss and the detectives, they were pushing it a little too hard. Like I could see what they were going for, like the postmodern um like it almost pushes absurdism a little too hard to where it's like, all right, you need to, there's a fine line that you have to walk with this dialogue and this acting, and they
yeah,
just pushed it a little too hard.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
yeah,
I agree, but luckily they're very small parts of the film. And they don't take up a big, well, in a way, but yeah.
yeah. I would say like for me, like well, the one of the main detectives was played by Jordana Brewster, and I thought that, like you said, they were leaning far too much into like the conventions of like a of what a detective would say, or just these like quippy lines, or she's like when they're investigating the murder in the opening of the film, she's like says something about how like this guy's an incel, or you know, just
Yeah.
like this like kind of like jargon that like you just it just makes you feel gross inside. You're like,
Yeah.
don't say that.
Don't put
Like
that
why are
out.
you saying this in this movie? something that something that I know Lucio Fulci or Mario Bava would never do because they don't speak English. So
Yeah. I guess one other side note is like Drake probably hates this movie because Valentine's Day is his favorite holiday. You
yeah,
know,
that's true.
you know. So that
I
was my
don't.
other bit. So, but
Well,
yeah.
I suppose now we can finally switch gears, but well, I guess before we do that,
Mhm.
what are you thinking? Are you gonna recommend this to people? Recommend this to people with conditions or just not recommend? I feel like you definitely will recommend it at least in some
Yeah,
way.
yeah. I would recommend it. I had a very fun time with this film, and yeah, if you want to take a date to see it on Valentine's Day, if you really want to do that, that's there. Or if you just want to spend a nice little afternoon at the theaters, that's what me and my partner did, and yeah, so I would recommend it.
Well, all right. I'll recommend it with the condition of if you enjoy Scream or the Scream movies a lot, you'll probably get more mileage out of this than me. But as someone who enjoys Scream, okay, then I don't know. It's not really for me. So take that information as so do with that information as you will.
Yes,
So that's a
I
soft
love that
recommendation.
phrase.
Yeah.
I really love that phrase. It's I don't know. I was gonna say it reminds me of something else, but I can't remember what it reminds me of. But it's such a good phrase. It's very to the point. I think it's a very nice phrase.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Um,
But without further ado, Chris, sorry, without further ado, why did you choose A Bay of Blood by Mario Bava?
well, so Bava is the kind of the pioneer of slasher movies, I would say. I mean, really the first slasher movie is Psycho. Most people will say that. Or the first film with slasher elements is Psycho and then also Peeping Tom by Michael Powell as well.
Yeah. I think they create a lot of the visual language that we commonly associate with slashers now as well. Not just story archetypes, but like the POV shots and stuff like that. I feel like that definitely.
But when you think about like films that aren't like thrillers or aren't focused on a character's mental trials and tribulations and are just
Mhm.
about like a masked person going around murdering people, it really is Bava who created what what we consider to be a slasher. W-
Mhm.
And so it wasn't a Bay of Blood that was the first slasher. It was 1964's Blood and Black Lace, which was, I guess, it was a giallo, is what they're called in Italy, or it's a type of Italian slasher movie that people would refer to, which is just the word yellow in Italian. So Bava, though, before he went on to direct films, which he actually only did near the end of his career, he was a very accomplished cinematographer in
Mhm.
Italian cinema. And so, and
And it
did the cinema,
shows.
yeah, definitely shows. And he did the
Mhm.
cinematography for his films that he even directed as well. So I think that's a really important component of how he builds cinematic language so well. And Fulton and I both watched Blood and Black Lace as well as Bay of Blood this
Mhm.
week, just because Blood and Black Lace is pretty short, and I think it's a pretty important component of his autorial vision.
Yeah. Just to correct myself, I could be wrong about the visual language of slashers and the POV thing. I think I was thinking more of the POV shots, and so I want to say there are POV shots of the camera killing people or of the camera moving in on the victims in Peeping Tom. So I
Yes.
was going to say I don't think there are any POV shots in Psycho. So I wanted to correct my mistake right there. Um,
Yeah.
but so I mean, Bava was a great subject, I think, to kind of research for this week because like all of his films are like 85 minutes long, like around the 80-minute mark. If they're longer, they're like 90 minutes,
Yeah.
which is always kind of a treat for me and Chris because we can actually like get more movies in and learn more about, the subject that we want to do. And I was very glad to like go all in. So, um, there were definitely more Bava films that I wanted to watch, but I watched Blood and Black Lace because that was actually one of my first Arrow Blu-rays that I ever picked up. That and The Beast. So it's a very interesting combo, but so I've had it for forever. So I wanted to do that. And then I checked out The Road to Fort Alamo, which is a Western that he made, which probably won't come up too much in this discussion. But I just kind of wanted to get a sense for his versatility as a director and what traces of horror can you see in his westerns and so on and so forth, which again, now having seen that one, which I think is one of his more popular westerns, he's only made three. um he was kind of from my understanding, he was kind of a journeyman for those. Like he was kind of brought in at the last moment. So stylistically, I didn't really, on just a first watch, I didn't see much similarities. But do we kind of want to trace Blood and Black Lace to A Bay of Blood, or do you want to hop right into A Bay of Blood, or how did you kind of want to move through the conversation?
Well, I guess I'll say just briefly can touch on Blood and Black Lace just because I think there's some aspects of it that I think I would be important to touch on. Blood and
Mhm.
Black Lace feels much more like I guess if I were to use like American cinematic language, I would say Blood and Black Lace feels more like Halloween and Bay of Blood feels more like Friday the 13th.
I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah. Where
Yeah.
so Blood and Black Lace, you have this masked murderer that's at a dance company and he's killing all these girls at the dance company and people are trying to find out who it is and of course, lots of violence ensues. As I say, very that nice crimson fake
Yeah.
blood color goes
It should really
crazy.
come back, man. The
But
CGI blood is no replacement for like
yeah,
the crimson, almost like melted like blood orange crayon
my
blood
oh,
that they'd use.
also my bad. It's not a dance company. I got my wires crossed. That's of course Suspiria. I
Suspiria,
was like,
yeah.
it's a fashion house. They're models.
Mhm.
But of course, that's another thing to underline that without Bava, there probably wouldn't be Argento. There probably wouldn't be Fulci.
Mm.
These are all directors in Italian horror that are very indebted to Bava's contributions to horror and also like being able to push the envelope of horror movies and how far they could go because these movies were pretty extreme for their time. I mean, Blood and Black Lace came out in 1964 and it's pretty nuts like for an
Mhm.
early 60s movie or Black Sunday, which you haven't seen, I don't believe, Fulton, but I
I
that
really
was
want to.
that was my first Bava. That was actually the first film he ever directed, and that was another pretty nuts movie. So yeah.
Like
Uh
he does feel very ahead of, he does feel very ahead of his time. Like when I was watching Blood and Black Lace, I was like, I mean, because of the fashion styles, you could tell that it's the 60s, but I was like, it doesn't feel like content wise, like there's like people that have drug addictions, and there's like this interconnected, like, whodunit web of mystery that you kind of have to tackle.
I mean, it's
Just the
not,
violence too.
it's very confusing, which I think is a lot
Ah.
of Italian giallo films are kind of can be very convoluted. And then
Mhm.
even more so Bay of Blood is a much more confusing story where you have this whole like inheritance web of people that are trying to get the money of a dead heiress's land in this bay, and then there are multiple players and they're like trying to kill each other so they can get the inheritance. uh and then it has this incredible plot twist at the end that Fulton and I won't dare speak of, but it's
I was
really
so shocked. I was like, full mouth open, like what? So yeah, yeah. We shall not speak on that. Other than it's just insane. But
that's yeah.
sorry.
No, I'm just saying like, but there's just so many beautiful images, and just the way that it's quite slow, and it kind of it takes, I mean, you have the opening with the first murder, and then it takes a little bit after that for it to really get going, but I think it's all for the better because then you just have this insane finale in the last quarter of the movie where it's just
Mhm.
like there's just so much like so much intensity going on, like people are rushing around this place, they're trying to find each other. It's just also like incredibly cutthroat and brutal. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. And then it's even like with the characters, I mean, they're all so like desperate and greedy and like selfish and just like the worst people you could ever want to be around in a small, contained little area, around this bay. Um,
I like when
I guess
she
we'll, yeah, sorry.
no, I was just the main, so kind of I would say like she's like the main character.
Hmm.
Um because even though that she's not like introduced into the film until near the end, but I feel like she's the focal point until the very end. But like her and her husband are, she's like the estranged daughter of this heiress that owns this bay who was killed by her husband, and um like she was trying to really push back against people buying this land for like redevelopment for this nature, for this, this just serene lake that she owns a house on as well as the surrounding property. But these people that are trying to buy it won't take no for an answer, so they come up with this really convoluted plot to get her to get her husband to murder her, so then her husband who doesn't like her will like sell the property to make money, and then he gets killed by somebody, and then like it's just a domino effect, and so then their estranged daughter comes back, and she's with her husband, and she tells him you need to kill this person, and he's just like okay. Like
She's
he
like, you
just
need to stop being complacent and do something in your
it,
life. And it's
it
like, oh, there's other ways, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it's just so funny because it's just like, yeah, like you said, it's just like the most horrible people that have no basis in reality, have no
Yeah.
moral compass whatsoever. They just like murder other people like they're taking out the trash, you know?
Yeah. Like, and so something that I'd be curious to kind of look at, and because I've seen Suspiria, I've seen a few Fulci films, but Fulci is more dreamlike, and so I don't remember like, and I'm curious with what you've seen of Bava,
Hmm.
is like the complex like who done it like structure, is that a common thing in his giallos, or is that just like just the structure that these two films had? I was just
Uh,
curious if that's in Black Sunday or if you've seen any other ones that he's done.
So I actually haven't. I haven't seen any other of his giallos, but from what I know about his his films like Kill Baby Kill and what's the other one that's pretty good? The Whip in the Body. Um, I would say they're quite different. I would say like Bay of Blood and Blood and Black Lace seem to be like the most just straight like giallo film, but there's
Mm.
just so many other ones that I haven't seen that could very well be the same. It's a Hatchet for the Honeymoon is one
Mm.
that I feel like could have similar things, but other ones deal with a lot more like mystical elements, where these two were more grounded in reality as opposed to like any type of spiritual or paranormal aspects.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I was gonna say like,
Like Black Sunday is very much
s-
about witchcraft. So
ooh, okay, that's interesting. I mean, the really the only comparison I could make between these two and The Road to Fort Alamo is really you just have like a web of characters who all have very different intentions and desires, and obviously conflict arises out of, how these select few groups are interacting between each other and what they are trying to get. Which I mean, obviously, this is a storytelling technique in general, but kind of like the who done it aspect where it's like I want this, but I want this, and then she wants that, and then this person wants this,
yeah,
So, but yeah, and I mean, I guess just because I don't know really how much I have to say about it, but when you watch it, um, I figured we could talk about how it inspired Friday the 13th. I mean, I feel like even if
yeah,
you look at the title and just look at anything about it, it's pretty, you can really easily see how the idea would have formed for Friday the 13th from this.
yeah. I definitely think Sean Cunningham was a fan
Hmm.
because, like, you have this secluded campsite like area, and then you have a machete killer. Obviously, Friday the 13th is more. I mean, especially the first one, which everyone knows is Jason's mom, not Jason, who's doing the
Jason's
killing.
mom has
Has
got
got
it
it
going
going.
on, and I want it so long. Sorry.
Jan, Mrs. Voorhees fan cam. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
fine. Sorry. Yeah, you were
But
saying. Sorry.
like the iconic American machete slasher villain is Jason, and you know
Mhm.
this film, of course, has a machete killer too. So,
Mhm.
and Friday the 13th, of course, came out 9 years after Bay of Blood. So
Mm.
yeah, so you can definitely see the inspiration. Also, just the like teenagers that are like, let's
Woohoo!
yeah,
Yeah.
let's break into this place and let's go. And then the one girl that's like, I'm gonna go skinny dipping and we're gonna have, and then the other people that are like, we're gonna have premarital sex, and you know, you just all those hallmarks
Hey
of
man, I said I was gonna have this chick, man. Come on, man. You can go hang out with the German girl. You know what's
yeah.
really funny and something I really it didn't dawn on me. It might not be a specifically teenage desire, but it is such a desire when you're like in your teenage years, like, let's go find an abandoned building, man, and just go break into it,
Yeah.
Which,
No,
you know, but,
let's
it's whatever.
we met this German and French girl, and we're gonna go check out this abandoned building where there was a murder.
Like some odd years ago, but it's cool now,
It's
man. It's
fine.
completely different, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, did you find the do you find the dubbing to be distracting in Italian movies, or do you not mind it?
It's something I've kind of accepted now. I remember like when I first was watching. the For a Few Dollars trilogy, or the No Name trilogy, which way you want to refer to it as. I think that may have actually, I could be wrong, but I think that was my first kind of exposure to the like the ADRing and everything with Italian films, and it was very much like a barrier for me at first, but I think I just really we talked about this before we started recording, but it's kind of like meeting films that you know what for what they are, and that's just how they were made. You know, that was
Yeah.
just a part of the filmmaking for Italy in this point in time, and so I kind of have accepted it, but it kind of also you know for films like I can't remember if Suspiria has it, but for like Argento films, like it makes it give it it actually adds to that dreamlike quality where it's like okay this doesn't like feel real but it is at the same time. You know, I
Yeah.
don't know if that helps if you have also had that experience with it.
I would agree. I think that it was something that was a very hard hurdle for me to clear initially too.
Mm,
I remember the first Argento film that I ever saw was actually not Suspiria, it was Opera, and I remembered it being pretty I was like kind of having a little bit trouble parsing it because I was just so distracted by the dubbing, but like I've really come to appreciate it almost. It like what you said, it gives it a very interesting texture that not other that no other film really comes close to because that was just how they did it in Italy.
mm,
For a lot for at least a lot of genre films in Italy. Like of course, if you watch a De Sica movie, or a Rossellini movie, you're not going to get the dubbing when you watch Rome Open City or Bicycle Thieves, but like
mm.
for these horror movies or like when I watch a Lucio Fulci movie like The Beyond, it's it's just such a like a strange world that you're stepping into when you watch a
Mm.
movie like that, and it puts you in that proper headspace to have this dubbing that sounds like the character is speaking and having like an out of body experience almost.
Yeah, like it adds to the
Yeah,
artifice of it all,
yeah, I would
and
say
it
that. Yeah.
definitely helps. Yeah, so I definitely agree. It's a very weird hurdle, especially like because we're so uh, properly attuned to how they make them in America, you know. So it is a hurdle.
Oh, you should really watch City of the Living Dead by Lucio Fulci. That's like one
It's
of
on my
the
list.
just such an amazing movie.
You know,
There's this
that was part of it was shot in. I think most of it was shot in Savannah. I want to say.
City of the Living Dead.
Yeah, in oh, what's the famous cemetery downtown?
Bonaventure.
I think it was Bonaventure. I'd have to double check. I think part of most or part of City of the Living Dead was shot in Savannah, which is
Uh,
why it's been on my list for quite some time.
no way, that's crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, they shot it in between Savannah, and then also they shot it in well in Manhattan and Queens, and then Fort Lee, New
Mm,
Jersey. Oh wow, okay. Yeah, so it like the dubbing just perfectly matches that movie. I don't really have
mm.
much to say because I don't really have much to say other than like if you just look that movie up and you look at the poster, it's just like I
It's
feel
so
like
sick.
it's such a great movie.
Yeah.
I was at the video store the other day and they were selling a copy of it, the Blue Underground Blu-ray release, and I didn't even need to look at the price tag. I was like, that's
Picking
mine
it
now.
up.
Yeah.
I at some point I want to show you, or if we can program it, if I can find a way to slot it in. But there's a horror movie called The Slayer, which was shot on Tybee, which
Oh
it's a
yeah.
very interesting kind of snapshot of Tybee at that time.
Oh yeah. No,
The 80s, I think, mid 80s,
the
or early.
Slayer. Okay.
Yeah, The Slayer. I have I think actually Arrow or Scream I think Arrow put out. I have a copy of it from Arrow, and I really like that film. Probably because it was shot on Tybee, so it's kind of cool. But
Yeah, I
so
mean, and it's great to
I
always see your
enjoyed it.
hometown. Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Um,
I think you'd appreciate that.
well, I'll definitely I added it to my watch list, to my ever-growing watch list. It's probably at like it's probably got to be like close to, yeah, it's almost at 4,000. So I still got a lot of catching up to do with you, but what, you're
Oh
probably at
God,
11,000.
Um, yes. Wait. Um, watch list. I have 13,412 films on my watch
Oh
list.
my God.
It's
Let's
it's only
go.
counting, man. I had stuff all the time.
Well,
So,
I guess all I'll say is I'm much more of a Bay of Blood guy than a Hard Eyes guy. So
mm, yes. I do highly recommend. It's kind of strange because like the images that have stuck more in my head are from Blood and Black Lace. But I still really liked Bay of Blood a
it's
lot. But
more,
like,
Blood and Black Lace is much more like visually striking. Uh,
yeah, for
just
sure.
just because like it was shot, a lot of it shot in very like controlled environments, in indoors and stuff, where like Bay of Blood has a lot of like exterior shots in the woods, but it still just has this, that there's still just so many beautifully or horrific scenes, and
Yeah,
it just also has an amazing poster. Just it's so
it's
like,
good.
yeah, so
It's simple yet effective. That's
simple
what I
yet
really like.
effective.
Yeah.
But I guess that's really all I have to say for this week.
Yeah, me too. Would recommend checking out more
Yeah.
Bava. All of his movies sound really interesting,
And
like
they're all on
Hercules in the
Tubi.
Underground.
Like basically they're
Yeah,
all on Tubi.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and we were kind of talking about this in prep for the episode, but he's such a varied director. He's like sci-fi, spy,
Yeah, Danger Diabolique.
westerns.
Danger
Uh,
Diabolique is it's a very celebrated comedy, spy comedy film based on a very, probably the most famous Italian comic book, Diabolique. So
mm,
that one has a lot of fans. Ennio Morricone did the score for that one. It's very, very good.
yeah, that's high up on my list.
Uh,
And folks, 80 around the 80-minute mark, you can chug through them really, and it's a fun time. I had a great time, even though Road to the Fort Alamo wasn't the most exciting. It was still kind of cool to see what he does with the Western, even if it's kind of low steam Bava.
yeah.
I'll say, but yeah. So I highly recommend checking him out. Bay of Blood is very good. It's more comprehensible, I think, while still being complex
Yeah.
than Blood and Black Lace. Um, yeah, so
Well, next week, which is Valentine's Day weekend, we're talking,
we're getting romantic.
we're getting romantic, and we're talking about what we love, Fulton. We're talking about movies that aren't real.
Yes. Um, so this is a kind of an interesting idea. So me and Chris like switch picking we kind of come to agree on the new film. We'll do that together. And then the other film we rotate picks. But Chris had a really great idea to pick movies that, in our streaming era, we have films that kind of come and go and they don't even like register like culturally for us. And they have really big names, sometimes big directors, sometimes big actors, and they kind of fly under the radar. And so this new movie that we picked is called The Gorge, which is directed by Derrickson, of Doctor Strange fame. Doctor Strange fame.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Yeah.
that movie, I feel like not a lot of people are, it's really on people's radar.
Well, not only is it directed by Scott Derrickson, but it also has Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy as well as Sigourney Weaver in it. So like really big
That's a
name people.
stacked cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stacked cast, direct to streaming. It did not play a single film festival that I could find, at least when I looked into it. So that's the new release, because I know Fulton's going to see Captain America. What's the new one called?
Brave New World.
Brave
A
New
Brave
World.
New World, Chris.
Wow.
No, I really can't blame you for. Honestly, you could maybe make the argument that that film does not feel real. It has Harrison Ford as the Red Hulk, and I feel like people really aren't like. But that's the current state of Marvel right now too. So
Yeah. So
people just aren't really that hyped for it. But
yeah,
I'll
that's
report on that.
yeah.
Sure.
Fulton,
I'll just say something quick about it if I really have much to say.
and the old film that we're talking about is one of the proto not real movies, which is a little film called Pawn Shop Chronicles, which is
Hmm.
from 2013, directed by Wayne Kramer, who was known to be the director of Brick Mansions, and it's a film that stars Paul Walker, Matt Dillon, Brendan Fraser, Elijah Wood, Vincent D'Onofrio, Norman Reedus, Thomas Jane, and
DJ Qualls.
DJ. I wish.
No, he's
Oh
in
my
it.
God, he is in it. Oh my God. Yeah, okay, so even better. We love some DJ Qualls.
I was about to say you can't forget our boy Chris.
So yeah, that's a movie that also doesn't feel real, but came out before the streaming era, so it was, given a proper distribution,
Mm.
in fact, a theatrical distribution, but it still does not resonate to me as a movie that ever existed or came from a parallel dimension almost. And of
And
course, we'll go deeper into this criteria. I I've been keeping a list of films that aren't real, because you get a lot of them. There's a lot of streaming direct. So,
mhm, for
but
sure. And
until
I
yeah,
was gonna
sorry.
say one thing I'll throw out there, and something I've been kind of curious because I feel like the films that don't feel real pre-streaming were mainly like direct to video films or films that had such a small
Yeah,
theatrical run that they didn't really register. And so I think the modern continuation of DTV is DTS, straight direct to streaming. And it's very interesting to me that we
they
have
get like
people.
A-list stars in it though. That's the thing. Like DTV was
Yeah,
always considered to be like prison, or like that's where you
that
start
is
out.
true.
Like but like now you have like Owen Wilson, or like there's that Jennifer Lopez movie that I just brought it up, Atlas, the Jennifer
Atlas.
Lopez
Yeah.
mech movie. That was a Netflix was advertising that one hard on the
Hmm.
subway when that came out last year, but it's not real. So
Yeah. Oh, I can't remember if I've talked to you about this, but like there are people that are kind of reclaiming DTV and being like, oh, well, these are like the good ones. And I'm
yeah.
really curious if people will give that type of attention to streaming films.
You're sleeping on Unicorn Store.
Yeah. So I'm just very, and I don't think we'll really be able to parse too much out of that idea because that's really like time will really tell. Like we're
Yeah.
still in the infancy of streaming, even though we're almost like about like probably a little bit over a decade of the streaming era, but I don't really know when we want to quantify that. But
I would say like when Netflix started making original content, like which was like what,
I was thinking like 20, is it?
2013. House of
Yeah.
Cards, I think, was like their first. That was probably their first show that was their first big show, at least. I think like they had a few other shows that they may have gotten like distribution for that were like international things, like,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
true.
But
For sure. But sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, but yeah, so until next time, stay safe.
Oh, stay wavy and keep on.
Keep it on.
There we go.